Hey everyone, welcome to Kids Who Code. This is week 7, October 15th, 2020. I'm Miss Jess from the Lake Hazel Library, and I'll take you through today's lesson. So the program websites we'll be using today is Girls Who Code and Scratch. That's the ones I'm going to be using, and I suggest you head over there and make an account if you haven't already. Yeah, so welcome to Kids Who Code Week 7. Today's agenda, we're going to learn new vocabulary from Girls Who Code Chapter 4, Getting Started. We're going to read and reflect from Chapter 4, Passage 1, the Design, Build, Test Cycle. We're going to do the Unplugged Activity, and we're going to do an online activity using Scratch. So you want to get registered on Girls Who Code so you can get access to the entire website. I'm going to show you the stuff right from the book on this presentation, but you can get the full access over there. Just email me at jmcpherson@adalib.org and I'll send you the invite and you can get signed up. It's super easy. I think they're going to make it even easier to sign up eventually, kind of working on that. But for now, send me an email. All right, so here's the key vocabulary that we need to work on. Brainstorming is going to come up a lot. A way of working as a group to think up creative solutions to big problems. In a brainstorming session, there are no bad ideas. The design, build, test cycle, which is the little diagram on the right here. In the design, build, test cycle, you design something, build it so that it works, test it out, and then use it to what you've learned to make the design better. Since it's a cycle, you keep doing it until you're happy with what you've made. So your assignment is to email me to sign up for Girls Who Code, and I'll send you an invite to give you access. And there's my email right there. Again, jmcpherson@adalib.org. Or you can even just go to the website and check it out. It's easiest to do that. I think it's going to make you do that anyway. You can read Learn to Code and Change the World, Chapter 4, Getting Started, Passage 1, the Design, Build, Test Cycle, pages 59 through 63. You can check this out from the libraries in the area, or again, you can read it on Girls Who Code's website. Do the unplugged and online activity by yourself or with a friend or family member. It's best to do it in teams because it's a partnership program we're going to be doing. But if you can't, doing it by yourself is also good. All right, the design, build, test cycle. In coding and in a lot of product development, designers and programmers work through something called the design, build, test cycle. It looks like this, and we saw this earlier. Starts with a vision, then you make a design, you build it, you test it, and if you're happy with it, you got your working prototype. You start by designing the product, then you build it, then you test it to make sure it's doing what you want it to do. Often testing it will lead you back to designing as you identify problem areas that aren't working or places that can be improved. But what if you don't know what to design? There's a process for that too. It's usually the first step in coding, and for a lot of people, it's the most fun part. Cloudy with a chance of brainstorming, and here's where brainstorming comes into play. Before you ever write a single line of code, you'll have to figure out what problem you are trying to solve and what product will help you do that. Maybe there's an idea you've been kicking around for a while, a product you wish you had. Maybe it's something you already use and wish worked better. Maybe you don't have any ideas for projects at all, but you have a feeling about a style or look for something. Maybe you're interested in a play, a poem, a piece of music, a social cause, a sport, or even a favorite shade of blue. These are all great places to start your brainstorming. The process of using free, no rules thinking to come up with ideas that you can build upon. All right, read and reflect. Choose something you like to do. What would make that thing better? Think of a project you've worked on before. It can be something you do at school, at home, or for extracurricular activity. How could you break that project down into a design, build, test cycle? On page 63, it says that brainstorming is not a time to be self-conscious or worry about whether or not the idea is good. Sometimes that can be really tough. What are things you can do while brainstorming to help yourself or others be brave and overcome that fear? These are just things and questions to think about as you're brainstorming and coming up with new ideas. All right, so here is the unplugged activity for the week. Use the questions below to brainstorm ideas for something you might want to create. One way is to start thinking about topics that interest you. Propose a variety of scenarios like, when I'm timing my sprints on the track field, I wish I had a blank. When I'm researching endangered animals, I really want to know about blank. When I'm looking for cake decoration ideas online, wouldn't it be great if I could blank? If I could have any app in the world, it would do blank. I use this device every day, but it could improve by blank. And these don't have to be the questions that you ask yourself. You can kind of think of something that maybe is more relatable to you and just kind of brainstorm those ideas. And we're back to brainstorming, of course, because the purpose of brainstorming is to kickstart your imagination to generate ideas. Here are some activities you can do at home. Browse the internet, flip through magazines, look at advertisements, take a walk outside and look, listen, taste, feel, and smell the world around you. Dive into new exciting topics that can hold your attention and see what you learn. You can even make your own collage. Like with some of these magazines, or even print some things off the internet, you can just, grab together some pictures that speak to you and make a collage, and maybe you'll come up with an idea that way. It's also called a vision board. That's a little bit different. All right, so here is the online activity. It's called pair programming. Practice coding with a partner, friend, or family member. Challenge your partner to make a sprite during a specific action, such as looking for an item in a treasure hunt, then check out their code. Now, normally, if we did this in person, we'd pair you up, but since, we're doing this at home, if you have somebody at home that you can do this with, that's great. Otherwise, you can just do this yourself and just practice, or maybe do it with a friend or a family member later. But there's two roles. There's the driver and the navigator. The driver moves the mouse and types on the keyboard and listens to suggestions from the navigator. The navigator gives instructions on what the driver should do, pays attention to what the driver is doing, and answers the driver's questions. Pair programming is when two people work together on the same computer to solve a coding problem. Each person has a different role. One person is the driver while the other is the navigator. So part 1, you're going to create a new project. You're going to go to scratch.mit.edu and sign in, or create an account if you haven't done one yet. It's super easy and quick. Click the create button at the top left of your screen, and you're going to name your project Pair Programming in Scratch by clicking on the untitled at the top of your screen. And I'm going to go through all of this in a couple of minutes so you can see exactly how I do it. Part 2, you're going to make your sprite bigger. The first challenge is to make your sprite bigger whenever you press the B key. Remember, you're the navigator, so you should give the suggestions to the driver. Tell your partner which code blocks they should use and where they can find the blocks. If you're the driver, your job is to listen to the navigator and drag the code blocks to the coding area. Here's some tips. For the navigator, of course, which block do you think you need so the program knows you press the B key? Where can you find this block? And hint, use the when space key is blocked in the events menu. How would you change the size of your sprite so it's getting bigger? Hint, change the size by 10 block in the looks menu. And part 3, you're going to make your sprite smaller. So now that you completed the first challenge, it's time to switch roles. Your next challenge is to make your sprite smaller whenever you press the S key. So if you're working with a partner, you guys can switch and do and kind of start over, clear the screen and do it this way. So tips for the navigator, which block do you think you'll need? So the program knows you press the S key. We're going to do S for small, and then before we did B for big. Hint, when you use the space key is press block in the events menu. And how would you change the size of your sprite so it gets bigger? You change the size by 10 block in the looks menu and use a minus sign in front of your 10 so the sprite can shrink. Okay, so now that we're in Scratch, whether you're online at scratch.mit.edu or if you're using Scratch Desktop like this, let's name our project Pair Programming in Scratch. And then we'll get started. So the first step is to make your sprite bigger. So I gave you some hints before, but if you need a little help, remember as the navigator, you kind of look at all these right here, maybe beforehand, and direct your driver what to do, and vice versa when you guys take turns. If you're doing this by yourself, that's fine too. So, but you're gonna have to look for the how to do it, like what you're doing, and that's going to be in events because you're making them do something. So you're going to be looking for when you do something, it's going to make the sprite do something. So which one do you guys think it is? I would say it's probably this one right here. So I'm going to drag that one over here. And then I know it says space right here, and that's kind of the default. So, and we want to do the letters to, that it starts with, so there's no confusion. So we're going to hit the little arrow and look for B for big. And now we're going to change the look of the sprite. So which one do you guys think it is? It's probably looks, right? So we go over here, and since we're going to change the size, let's see, where is size? Oh, right here. And there's other things you guys can do. You don't just have to do the big and small. So obviously you can change color, and you can maybe make them walk a certain way. But for now, we're just going to change the size. So there we go. So now we're going to do the big. So we're going to do hit B. Oops, sorry. All right, I'm gonna hit B, and he's coming at me. Okay. Well, I wonder how big I can go. I think that's as big as I can go right there. Cool. So, and then the same effect for small. I'm gonna do an S for small. And now to make it small, what do we have to do? Because if I just keep hitting S, nothing's going to happen, right? Because it's still going to change the size by 10. So we need to go down. So what would I put in front of this 10 to make it smaller? What do you guys think? Well, to make something smaller is to subtract it, right? So we're going to make a subtraction mark right in front of the 10, making it a negative number. And now we're going to hit S and see what happens. Click away. There we go. Oh, there we go. And I'm just kind of clicking it one by one, and now I'm just going to hold it down. So I want to see how small this goes. Oh my gosh. Whoa. It's tiny. Awesome. Well, I kind of want to bring him back to what he was. So now I have to get rid of that dash to make him, and I'm just going to go back to B because I want to be consistent. So B for big. And let's hit B. But, you can always hit, go back up to the top and do the space bar and do the space bar like that too. So that's kind of it. So this is a paired program. So maybe if you want to get with a friend or a family member and have them ask you to do something and try to tell you where it is. Or since now you know, you can tell them, you can have them sit down here and say, I want you to do this, and here is where you're going to find it. And you can do that with a lot of these things. You don't just have to do it with making it big and small. This is just an example. So that's basically how you do that project. So try to get with a partner if you can, or just kind of play around with that. Okay, and I think that's it for the Scratch tutorial today. All right, so you've learned what pair programming is and practice it in Scratch. Awesome job. Now it's time to reflect on what you learned and how it felt to work with a partner to solve a coding problem together. Share your answers to these questions with your partner. How did it feel to be the driver? How did it feel to be the navigator? What challenges did you and your partner have? How did you work together to solve them? And do you think it's easier to code when you get to do it with a partner? And why is that? Or why not? All right, and that is it for this week's coding program for kids who code. Thanks so much for joining me today and going over chapter 4, getting started. This was part 1, so I'll be doing part 2 next week. So come back for that and get registered at Kids Who Code, or Girls Who Code, I should say, by emailing me or Derek, and we'll get you signed up so you have access to all the curriculum. And if you have any questions, comments, or any registration issues, please reach out to us. We're here to help. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for joining us, and hope you had fun. See you next time.